Before we continue with the body, let's clean up the scene. There's an awful lot of junk that's been created, and so the quickest and easiest way to do this is to come up here to the File menu and choose Optimize Scene Size. And that should wipe out a lot of things that were unnecessary. Probably everything that was unnecessary, because we're not doing very much with the scene, we're just modeling. And any of those remaining live meshes that are hidden, go ahead, select all of those and delete them if you have any. So the year is complete, quote unquote, and it's about as good as I'm willing to get it right now. So I want to move on with the remaining parts of the body. So if I switch to front and side, I have quite a bit of geometry I want to add to the body, starting with neck, legs, working my way to the back, and then of course finishing the tail, putting that back on. Let's begin this process of refining the body by looking at the neck and the flow of edges on the neck. So just below the jaw, we have a fairly dense mesh in order to satisfy the needs of the head. And this is normal. This is absolutely normal. What I'd like to do is what I've been doing, make sure that I'm staying true to contours and stay on contours. So we're just going to refine these just a little bit, make sure that I'm staying there. The next thing, and don't worry about spreading these out. What we're going to do is add a little bit more information, a little bit more edge loops to the neck. So we're going to add maybe one more there and maybe one more here. And what I want to do is spend a little time distributing that information. Another way, there's another way actually. Watch this. Go get your quad draw tool, hold shift and control, turn off soft selections, hold shift and control, and remove an edge. Okay, so there's another way to rebuild where edges lie on the mesh, and we're using edge flow at about 60%, and so in so doing I'm able to kind of restructure the flow of the neck. And in particular, you see how the edges are kind of hooking downward? I want to bring that up a little bit. I don't like how they hook down so drastically, so I just want to bring that stuff up. And let's do that with soft selections and surface constraint, since we've done a lot of work here already. Yeah, and then I want to just kind of pull down on the shoulders a little bit here, like so. Try to capture the shape of the shoulder a little bit better than what we had. So that's just a wee bit more there on the neck, and that is more than enough geometry on the neck to articulate movements. Really, really good, and it's actually going to be payoff to have geometry underneath the jowls here, so that when the mouth opens, there's enough geometry here to articulate the flesh moving, the skin moving. Next, I want to address the sparing number of edges here on the chest. So I need a few more. And notice that when I add these, where they go. Notice where they go. They come around the leg. And I need those on the leg. So let's add two. One on this polyloop, control middle click. One on this polyloop, control middle click. Gives me quite a bit more across the shoulder for the scapula. Gives me one more across the chest. It's not quite enough. We need to do something special here. It gives me enough on the inside of the leg and on the outside of the leg. I need more cross sections along the leg. But again, we have a special problem here at the chest. Now, to get the edge loops that I want across the chest, we're going to do something similar to the kinds of extrusions that we did in the face. And this just takes a bit of imagining as to where you want the control. Also imagine that if I have this problem here on the chest, I probably have this problem back here by the butt. So the solution is to extrude everything. So you're going to grow your selection a couple of times. Going to add to your selection the belly. Switch to perspective. And add some of the polygons back here. Confirm my selection. And this is a 5-edge star. So 5-edge star. So we're going to watch that when we do this extrusion, make sure it's not a problem. So we're going to perform the extrusion now. Control E. Oops. There we go. A little bit bigger for you guys. And we're going to offset. Okay, let's take a look at where this 5 edges. Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still a 5. Good. Let's look back here. Is there any problems? Are there any problems? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And nothing along the length of the torso. Okay, let's do this 2 more times. Control E, offset. Control E, offset. Alright. That's a lot of stuff. Alright. Use the live mesh tool. Get the quad draw and relax using soft selections. Don't worry about symmetry. You know what? In fact, just turn symmetry off because it's just not going to work anyway. And relax this stuff. Well, look at that melt away. Isn't that nice? Go ahead and hit these up here on the shoulder too while you're at it. Gentle, gentle. Don't go crazy with it. We don't want to melt away any details. Well, I guess we don't really have details, do we? Go ahead and let things melt. Reduce soft selection area for this sensitive spot. Alright, a couple of problems. Really good results, but there are still problems. I do like how it opened up here on the chest. It feels more grid-like, right? It feels more grid-like. Alright, so I have a problem with this polygon, the one my cursor's on. Watch this. That's the original one separating leg from shoulder, right? When we first made our first extrusion. Go ahead, control middle click on that. Same thing on the back end. There is that diamond shape one. Control middle click on that one. Go ahead and relax that one a little bit more. Relax, relax, relax. This is why it was so important early on to spend time on contours, because this step right here just follows the contours we've already laid down, and it's like 85–90% done. Fantastic. That went really well. The torso needs more cross sections. Control middle click, control middle click, control middle click, control middle click with the multi-cut tool. Much better. Go ahead, relax that while you're here. Shouldn't need much relaxing. Okay, don't worry about the symmetry stuff yet. Let's just ignore that for the moment. Okay, let's focus on foreleg. Toe. Well, not quite toes yet. I think I want to save that for last. But let's begin the process of what will be toe. Middle click, control middle click. Control middle click. That runs the full length of the leg, and it adds more to the shoulder. Go ahead, relax that one. Larger soft selection. Go ahead and relax that one. Okay, next, more cross-section edge loops, starting with the foot, work our way up. Okay, start here. You need one. Let's turn off edge flow just for the moment. No, don't turn off edge flow. Leave that on. You need 1, 2, 3 across the foot. Okay, you're gonna need 1, 2, 3 on the ankle. You're going to need 1. Let's look at the reference. Oh yeah, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do very well. And then this one runs the full length of the body, goes all the way up to the head, right? I think it goes all the way to the nose, right? Yeah, that goes to the nose. We don't want that, not yet. Maybe we never want that. But this one we just added, just above it. I think this is the one just above it. Yeah, this one goes across the chest. So if you need another one in this area, cut here, or insert edge here. Same process for the hind leg. Same process for the hind leg. Let's add the edges for the hind leg. 1, 2, 3. 1 right down the center. 1, 2, 3. That's significantly going to change the shape of the leg, so we need to get in there and change that. 1 here. Be mindful of your polygon density. I don't need to split that 3 times because the polygon density is pretty even there. 1 there. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Okay, poly density is looking consistent. That's good. Obviously the face has more. The toes will have more. Looking pretty good. The inside of the leg on the hind leg, I think. Oh yeah, that's right. We did 2 vertical on the foreleg. We need 2 vertical on the hind leg. Good. Now the polygon density is the same. Now we need to get rid of the bad half, delete the bad half, and fix the symmetry, and then do the remaining sculpting. All right, let's fix this symmetry. So I've double-clicked my edge loop going all the way around, and make sure that it does in fact go all the way around through the center, and use your rebuild symmetry, and everything that we just did should be on the other side. Turn your symmetry back on. We don't need the live mesh. We can turn that off. And now I want to spend time again in the right-hand view matching contours. So this is where we really match things up. We'll worry about toes last, and genitalia and other details, anus, tail. Those bits can be last. I found it. I found the thing that kept throwing off my center line when I was using soft selections with symmetry. It's right here. This thing was checkmarked. Allow partial symmetry. Turn it off. And now when I manipulate here on the shoulders, for example, notice my center line doesn't move. That's what I was used to. I have been used to that for the last few years. And I suppose that's an improvement to have partial symmetry, but it was kind of annoying. It was breaking my mojo. So turn that off. So I'm going through edge loop by edge loop with soft selections, front view and side view, and I'm matching. I'm ignoring that toe for a moment because that's going to be extruded out. And I'm just pushing things around until it mostly matches reference. And I got some unique ideas on how to handle the toes. So yeah, you can see I already matched the side view, and I've isolated the front leg, and I've moved these to help set up for an extrusion here, and eventually I'll need a little bit more around it. That's pretty good though. Articulated the elbow, and I got a good close look on the inside from the elbow. It looks clean on the inside. And so I just have that little pad here on the backside of the dog's foot. I don't know what it's called. And the toes on the side, the four toes, and the little pads on the bottom. So let's do this one right here. Just grab a couple polygons, confirm selection, and perform an extrusion. Of course, yeah, I might as well just do it. You can turn off symmetry, we don't need that. Just divide one more time there, and that should be enough, and move the vertices around. Yeah, so the foreleg is just about done. Needs maybe just a little bit more sculpting attention. I could probably come back to the body tomorrow and spend another 3 hours just manipulating things to be a more refined sculpt, but I think this is good for now. I'm going to add the side toe, and I need a couple more divisions through here to support it. Go to the front view, and then identify the polygons for extrusion. Look at the right-hand view and look at the illustration here, just to get an idea of where it is. And also, I have these illustrations as well that I've given these to you. So go ahead, and that's the hind leg. So you want the foreleg. Yeah, that's pretty clear. So I think I'll go with this. I'll perform the extrusion. Yeah, I think this will work. Perform the extrusion, offset, thicken a little bit. Extrude again, thicken a little bit, and then just translate these around a little bit. Go ahead and drop another edge loop on that, and then take a little time to soften those out. Let me introduce a new tool to you. It's called Sculpt Geometry. I have a shortcut to it right here. Sculpt a geometry object. And that stuff lives under here, these sculpting tools. They're pretty good. They're new. I haven't used most of the stuff in here, but this Sculpt Geometry tool I am familiar with. And in this situation, it would really help me. So here what I've chosen is Smooth, and right next to it is Relax. And that allows me to take my existing mesh and just kind of mush it down. Plays a little bit more like a clay reaction. There. See? So that way I'm not futzing around with points all night long. There. And then this is the pull. So I can pull on it. I guess it's more like a bubbling out. That's fine. And then let's look at that from the front view. And we want the claw to come off of that. So that's an extrusion. And we should perform that right there, I think. That should be good. Extrude. Thicken. Offset. Front view. Front view. Let's just translate those down. Shape them a little bit. Same idea here. Just use the sculpt geometry tool. Push and pull. Where'd that go? Right there. Let's do relax. Smaller radius. Just see what you can do with that. Maybe smooth. Just soften it down a little bit. Maybe we can get it to be a little bit more claw-like. And then go in there. And then after this, a little bit, just go in there point by point. Check it out in the front view. Yeah, just go in here point by point after doing a little bit of that. Oh, soft selections. Yeah, that works. It's not bad. Good. So I think it's pretty clear at this point that once you have a good, strong base structure, we can start to really get in there and do real detailed sculpting and advance into other tool sets. It's quite a bit of fun at this point. By this point, I have to remind myself to stay focused, stay on task, because it's just enjoyable manipulating and moving and refining, and that process is very satisfying. To prepare for the toes, spend just a little bit of time with surface constraint, squaring up these edges. Just spend a little bit of time in that. Now we're going to get more geometry by the time we're done extruding and so forth. You could even go as far as, watch this, you could even square this up. Of course you're watching. Right, so that's what I'm trying to do. So making this selection, you can scale it. We've done this trick before. Turn the tweak mode off. And scale by object space. Just scale towards the center a couple times, and that pretty much makes a straight line. And that just simplifies the problem of extruding these toes out. So go ahead and do that. And with the surface constraint, we don't lose the form so much. We maintain the form. Do that for the next two. 1, 2. Yeah, it even rotates well on the surface, keeping fairly good to the form. So I can point the toe a different direction so that they don't have to be pointing forward, I suppose. But in every illustration that I've seen, the dog's toes are very much pointing forward. Once you've straightened those out, just take a little time to square up the toe if you need to. I'm going to turn off my surface constraint, turn the tweak mode back on, and just square up this toe a little bit here, kind of preparing for the nail. You'll see what I mean soon. And also, I could probably use one more right across here. Actually, several, but we'll start with this one right here. All right, so some of my strategy for this is to when I choose to extrude, I want to be sure that the extrusions that I perform are away from this little pad. You see? So here's an extrusion that's going to create this toe. And I don't want this cross loop to be interfered with. And my hope here is that, somewhere in there, my hope here is that I can offset these enough, and then the next one would be offset here, like so. And that's the trick. That's the ticket for ensuring that you get all the detail you need for your toes, but make sure that it doesn't go running all the way up the body. You don't want it to go up the body. You want it to stay down here. So we're just going to loop it back. And these loops will give us the extra detail that we need. And then eventually, we might need an edge that runs right down the center. And the reason for that is so that we can round out the ball of the foot like that. But we might have other solutions for that as well. We could make yet another extrusion that runs down, just extruding the extrusion. And then that's 2 more points at the end instead of 1 point at the end. So this solution is the better solution. Cha-ching! And this solution is, well, it's good, but we end up with geometry running down the body. And again, I don't want that. I want to keep the geometry down here. Be forewarned that this part can take a long time. You might spend as much time in a single foot as you do the entire head. Same problem with human hands and human face. I find myself spending more time on human hands, probably because I spent less time with them overall than I have the human face. So it can add up quickly. But again, we're trying to capture a sense of the dog, so we'll take it to a certain point and then stop. Let's start with the outside toe, or I'm sorry, the inside toe, and grab everything that looks like it might be toe. Notice I'm avoiding by 1 poly loop. I'm avoiding this toe because I don't want this 5-edged star to turn into a 6. Okay, perform your extrusion. Alright, and then the next toe, come all the way up to here, 1 poly loop higher than the side toe. And my inspiration for this is tendons. The tendons. To come all the way up here. And add to your selection. And then for the bottom of the foot, come all the way past that pad that we just talked about. So that pad is like 1 poly loop below the bottom of my side claw. So spin this around. So that would be right. Okay, problem here. My side toe I extruded to here, but based on what I just described, we would need to split to here. What do? We insert an edge loop. Control middle click. Now we have the proper separation. Go back to polygon. Shift double click. Get the range. Perform the extrusion. Same thing on the next one. Go one poly loop lower and 1 poly loop well, we're not near the claw, so let's go 1 poly loop higher because I don't want to interfere with the pad down here. Yes. Perform the extrusion. Notice what we're getting here. We're getting offsetting 5 stars, so we don't end up with 6 stars, 6 edge stars. We're getting an edge loop, that runs down the middle of each toe, allowing us to create a valley between each toe. And we have an extrusion that we could extrude again. Go ahead to extrude this one again, just to illustrate the point. It's too early, but just to illustrate the point that I could extrude that one again. And now I have a set of vertices on the front end of the toe to create the roundness on the front of the toe and the claw. We might not need that. Go ahead and perform the last extrusion for the outside toe. This one's pretty easy. Just make sure that it's offset away from the last one. And for consistency's sake, I'll make this outside toe on the same poly loop as the inside toe and perform the extrusion. Alright, time for some sculpting. You may be thinking, well, why did we extrude way up here? I told you because I'm referencing the tendons, but what's the big deal, right? Because if we look at this image, there's really only a small area that actually needs to kind of recess in to be the valley. The reason behind the thinking, the logic behind the thinking is I'm thinking further down the road. Painting textures, applying fur shaders, making good, clean, animatable ankles. And I think that by having the geometry follow the tendon line, I'm giving myself a little bit more to work with in a good way. And I think it just, in general, it's hard to explain until you experience it yourself in production. So what do we do from here? Like I said, we only need to have this little bit of valley in here. So what I'm going to do is select a bit of edge loop per toe, in between per toe. Confirm my selection. Use transform, the transform component tool. And this one, just move along the Z, the local Z, just tuck them in. That should give you a better idea of where to begin. So this gives you a starting point. Take some time to get each one of those valley edges here nice and straight. So here I've turned off surface constraint and I'm just flattening the edge, then moving it a little bit to straighten it out, and then I will take a little time to clean up around the bottom. It's probably don't need so much a valley on the bottom. Let's look at the bottom of the toes again. No, that should work out. That little valley, that should work out well. We can build the pad, that little pad around it. For the remaining bits, so they don't cause tension on the surface, I recommend relaxing it either with Sculpt Geometry tool or with the Live Mesh and Quad Draw Relax option. Either one should do the job. Just make sure you choose Relax. If you're using the Sculpt Geometry tool, just double click that. And it turns out that this set of sculpting tools has nothing to do with the Sculpt Geometry tool. I guess this is something that's been pulled from concepts that have been pulled from Mudbox. So very new. I haven't touched these yet. I'm still using the older Sculpt Geometry tool. This is interesting. Look at this. So I'm relaxing, and look what I found. I left an extrusion behind. But watch what happens. It's good to find it, but watch what happens. This is kind of cool. Notice how it just peels open like that? The relax tool is just peeling it open. It's like automatically rounding it out for me. It's a cool little discovery. It's because those are the angles that I would go for anyway. It's just opening it up. Yeah, that actually worked out rather well. I think I will do the same thing on the other toes. Just put a little extrusion, second extrusion, running down the length of it like we did, like I talked about earlier. And So just extrude, maybe even just leave it there, and then let the relax tool do the rest of the work. Drop to object mode, go to relax, and just let relax open that up. And the benefit was getting great curvature on the front end of the toe. Nice happy little, haven't had a happy accident in a while. This is cool. Look how it just peels open like that. I probably just started a bad thing. Now students are going to start stacking extrusions on top of each other, and then you'll just forget that they're there, causing more problems later. But that worked out. That worked out okay. And then set the smoothing angle to soften. Turn the wireframe off, just see how that's coming up. That's not too bad. Not too bad. All right, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to add another extrusion inside each extrusion on the outside and inside toes. And then I will take time to sculpt, right? We got to start. We got to get back to contours. I'm losing contours. It's getting too gooey, like it's been squeezed out of a toothpaste bottle. We need to kind of sharpen it up and make it more dog-like. But we have all of the essential edges and almost all of the essential edges for the pads on the bottom. So we're almost done. I'm going to take some time to sculpt off camera. I won't add anything else. I'm just going to sculpt with what I have right here. Same stuff I've been doing. Soft selection, sculpt geometry tool, moving one at a time, surface constraints, and I'm ignoring symmetry at this point. I really don't even need that because I'm ignoring the other foot right now. So these valleys just went too far, too deep on the bottom of the foot. So use smooth to help level out the valleys and the peaks. Works pretty good. And I added one edge loop. I know I said I wouldn't, but I added one on the inside of the toe, right there. And I added one on the inside of the toe, right there. I was having a hard time getting this shape. There just wasn't enough geometry on these outside toes to get what I needed. So I've been just working against the squareness of the toe. Like it has a general kind of squareness to it that I'm able to stay on contour with. But there's also a softness, a roundness to it, which I just realize here too that this toe is further back, and and seeing that, I'm reminded of my reference. Yeah, these two toes are further back, so I'm going to do that next. I'm just going to push those toes back. So I'm still generalizing the foot, working my way around. I want to define the little pads. I have those markers, and define the nails so that I have those landmarks. Landmarks of the nails, landmarks of the pads on the bottom. Then I'll have all my geometry. Then I'll feel comfortable moving forward with all of the sculpting. So this is the selection I decided on, and I was comparing to reference. My decisions were guided by having polyloop separations between each one, and also making sure that there's at least a polyloop separating on corners like here, and the rest of it is an extrusion. And I'll do 2. And then I'll use the relax geometry tool. And then from here, I can push and pull further. That's not too bad. I'm able to kind of bury that in there, that one edge loop. And looking at my right-hand view, I can just pull down the pad a little bit further and get this toe to come down a little bit further. So I've really built up that one pad on the bottom. Basically, I added 2 edge loops after having pulled it after having pushed one edge loop down and then pulling the remaining vertices, I'm sorry, let me say that again. After pushing this edge loop into the surface, I pulled the remaining edge vertices down this way. Then I added two, this one and this one, to help me round it out. Then I went through with relax, and you can see that it's very much separated from the paw. So now I'm going to spend some time getting some other material to come down. But if you take a look at this reference, you can see that that pad is actually quite large here on the back end. Really quite large pads. And so the next bit is just to get those other pads to follow suit and get these nails to come out. And then I think I got it. You know, I got the sense of the dog's foot. That should be enough to convince an audience. Yeah, I just discovered something cool. Totally accidental. Hit Q, hold tab, and you can quickly paint select. I must have added that recently. Very cool. Here's what I'm going to do to help me too is I'm going to use that selection technique, right? Just holding down tab with select to paint select that. Basically the equivalent to raycast selection in other software. And I'm going to set all this stuff to absolute transforms Y0 so that I have a kind of a go-to point so I can see what I have to sculpt to. And then I can insert edges and continue to round that out, which is what I've been doing over here. I've been rounding out this pad over here. And it really is much more convincing, you know, in a distance, that that's the bottom of a dog's foot. It's taking a while though, as I anticipated. It's getting there. It's getting there. It's starting to take some shape. Just spending time, sometimes with surface constraint, sometimes without. Sometimes I have a soft selection, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I found it easier just to turn soft selection off and just get in there one point at a time. Sometimes with surface constraint, sometimes not. And just round out the form. Here I just tossed in a couple of extrusions, two faces on the front side of each toe. I'm going to start moving those around for the claw. Oh, he's got a mutated claw. Look at that. I don't know what happened to it. It just took off. It's got some kind of fungus underneath it. Just insert one edge loop towards the center, towards where the nail connects to the base, and then fold this one over top like that. That'll give a good impression of being connected. Just fold it, just tuck and fold it like that. And it gives you an opportunity to split it later. And then just drop a couple right there. And tweak vertices. Yeah, I'm really spending time at extreme angles of the foot, popping back to reference quite a bit. Actually, I've got it on the other monitor right now, glancing over at it. And trying to work fast. I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on this. We are doing introductory material, but I think it's good for you to understand and appreciate the intensity of what this could be. I would probably spend a whole nother afternoon taking this foot so much further. I really would. I unfortunately don't have that luxury right now, as we have other lessons to cover. But I think we've covered a lot of ground here. The last couple things to do for this animal, and to help you understand how you could use this work that you've already done, is to instantiate the toes. We should use the information that we have here for the other feet. So that would really streamline a lot of our problems. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's taking good shape. On the bottom here, I just started grabbing polygons and moving them around, and I'll deal with how they crash into each other later. I just I just wanted to see the form. I didn't really care. Just got to a point where I just didn't care if it was, perfectly awesome topology. I just want to see the dog's foot faster, and then I can come through and do a cleanup. I know how to clean it up, and I know how to sculpt. And one of the keys to sculpting is really just gesture and speed. Don't get hung up in a bunch of tiny details. You're never going to capture it, so you want to, which is a lesson I'm always learning. But yeah, you really want to accelerate through this stuff. I'm spending a lot of time too just um, making sure that forms are less square. Really, really giving some attention to the roundness of forms. Like I got a lot of sharp ups and downs in here. I guess that's part of cleanup, but it's also a part of sculpting. Just to spend time, and I've probably nudged and bumped a bunch of points I didn't intend to, because I'm trying to go fast. But that'll just have to be part of my cleanup as I go. So for the if you're in my classroom, um, and you most likely are, for the purposes of this assignment, capture the essence of the dog's foot. Um, I intend to go into more and more detail, but just get the essence of it, and then go from there. These claws are looking a little too eagle-like claws. I need to just maybe thicken them up. They got a little too thin. Thicker at the base. Alright, let's get that foot on the other side. Let's get out of soft selections. Rebuild sim. Alright, we got the paw on the other side. Looks pretty cool, right? Not too bad. Could use some more love, but with the camera at this distance, I'm happy. Alright, now I want to take that work and bring it back here. And I took a close look at the reference, and there's some mild differences in terms of size of the pad and so forth on the bottom of the dog's foot, but not too bad. The actual foot itself, this part here, and other than the little elbow, they'll have a little pad there that's not there. No side claw. No side claw. Just the toes. If there is a side claw, it's invisible. Alright, so we're going to take this work down here. Let's get to the side view. We're going to take all of, say, that, and duplicate face, bring it to the back of the foot, and then make connections. Let me grow one more, and that should be good. Let's get that. Obviously we'll have to take the claw off, the side claw, and fix whatever this is, and then and we should have the same number of edges running down the leg, so this should be okay. Okay, now we go up to edit, mesh, duplicate, hit Q. You should have a new mesh. There it is. Go ahead and move that mesh. Turn off tweak mode. Move that mesh back here. Situate it. We might want to go a little bit bigger on the hind paw, but I think this is pretty good. Alright. Alright, cut the old paw off for the hind leg. Right there should do. All right, select the two pieces, combine. Delete construction history. Take this side nail off. I kept hitting shift. I meant to hit tab. Hold tab, right? Yeah, hold tab and shift, right? Yeah, that adds to your selection. All right, go ahead and fill that. And we don't have any other holes in the mesh, so we should be able to safely run. Well, actually, no. Now we need to make this connection here. So we need to use a linear bridge. So let's actually repair this little piece right here. All right, let's remove that. And let's use append to polygon. And just go straight across edge to edge. Use multi-cut, control middle click, and then use target weld. Okay. Cool. And then we have exactly the same point count. Select the two edge loops, open edge loops, here, and do a linear bridge. And I don't believe I have any twisting. I seem to have a good clean connection, but I will need to switch the back view, isolate this selection, and then match to reference. And I never did do sculpting of the hind leg to reference, so I still need to do that too. So I'll do all that at the same time. Oh, and while you're here, take that out, and you can, yeah, now you can just do fill hole. I know there's no leg here, but just do fill hole, and then, where is that? There it is. Oops. And then use the multi-cut. And with the edge flow, it should kind of correct the shape. Yep, good. You can soften the edges if you want to. Okay, now I'm going to isolate that hind leg, the whole thing. Almost the whole thing. And then just like I'll work my way up the leg and get those references in there too. Hold control, add those references. Put that in my other camera too. Alright, then I'm going to spend time matching to reference, both from back view and from, well, all the views, everywhere. And notice that the illustration, the paw is pointing like that way. Don't do that. Just keep the paw pointing straight forward. It's better for rigging down the line. When we want to pose it, we can do it after the sculpt is done. So, to your best of your ability, don't twist the foot. You know what? I mean what I just said, but you know what? Just forget about it for right now. Just go ahead and turn that. We can always turn it back later. A good rigger knows how to work with this stuff, and a good modeler can change it later. Just for the purposes of making a convincing model right now, go ahead and just follow your reference. Just ignore that earlier bit. Stay true to your reference. That's the only way you're going to learn right now. All right, and stay true to our constant reference. That's the right-hand view, right? So it looks to me like, if I remember our right-hand view correctly, the paw is not exactly forward. Yeah, it is a little bit to the side. So I think this is acceptable. Here's a problem. This might happen to you at some point. Actually, it probably did happen to you. When we combined those two pieces, the paw and the body, somehow my pivot moved. All right, not a big deal, but when I'm trying to rebuild symmetry, it is a big deal. So before I can rebuild symmetry, or in this case, I'm going to use my symmetry button over here because I only have half a mesh. I'm going to have to put this thing back to the origin, and I think I made a tool to do that super fast for you. You know, I don't have it on the toolbar. Well, it's easy enough. You could just hold down the D key, turn on the grid, and where did the grid go? Did I turn it off in the viewport? Oh, I did turn off in the viewport. So you could just hold down the D key, hold down the X key, and just move that pivot point to down there. I was going to show you another way, but that's fine for now. Okay, and now I should be able to rebuild my object. So this is the rebuild symmetry when you have an existing whole mesh, and then my tool over here, the one I wrote a couple years back, is when you have half a mesh. So that's the difference between this symmetry tool and the rebuild. I think you know that by now. So there it is in the round. I'm going to put the tail on it, genitalia, and then do one more run through on the dog, but I'm pretty happy. Alright, I'm done adding the private bits. Basically, I just did an extrusion from one end to here, did a little bit of sculpting, then did an extrusion from here to here, can't see it, from here to, okay, there, that right there. I definitely want to come back to the toes, but I'm going to end this session by filling the hole on the tail. Do a little bit of sculpting around the tail, round it out. Make the next step easier. Insert a couple of edge loops. Turn the edge flow off. And do an extrusion. About, yeah, about that long. Just taper it down a little bit at the end. Poke the end of the tail. Insert a few edge loops. How many you'll need is just entirely dependent on the detail of the rig. Oh yeah, and don't do what I just did here. I must be tired. Don't pull that point out. If you need it pointy, just scale it down. We've talked about that. Maybe we haven't talked about that. If you need things to be sharper, don't use a vertex or an edge. Just make small polygons. Probably have to redo that tail again. Okay, but there it is. And I think the best thing I could do for you is to show you how to pose it, but I'm definitely at the end of this hour. Posing it would be absolutely awesome, and I had hoped that we could have time to do that, but that might have to wait for a different place and time. Understand though that this dog is ready for rigging, maybe with the small exception of this foot being slightly turned out. I'm not sure. As long as that foot has a straight line that you can visualize, I can definitely see a straight line right here. As long as there's at least one plane where you can see a straight line for the leg, then it's riggable. Okay, so this was really a ton of fun. The model deserves a good, thorough run over, maybe another hour of just tightening and details and checking poly density. The dog is pretty much ready for unwrapping and painting. So this, if you can get your model to have the kind of poly density as good or better than this, then you're ready. You're ready to make creatures and characters and move on, because you just did one of the most challenging things, at least this course has to offer, and for most people, this kind of work is the most challenging. So congratulations for getting this far, and I'll see you in the next hour where we will render this dog.